What do you mean by worse?
I think I'm way more critical of my faith because I have so many good examples of like faithful men and women. It
Hmm.
has made me feel like my journey to some extent has been a little bit harder because I am wanting like so much out of it.
I mean, my original question is, where are you at in terms of what you're practicing and what your beliefs are? You guys are not part of the
Yeah.
college, both you, either one of you, you're not part of the collegiate community where there's even a question of practicing faith. But uh, where are you at now?
Um, I would say like Colby said, he's never questioned his faith in God or if he believes in God. I guess that simple fact. And I don't really like. I definitely have questioned it, but I've definitely never come out of the other side like not believing. It's always been like I've questioned my faith a lot for sure, but I've definitely always felt that I do believe in God. Um, for City of the Lord, I guess as far as City of the Lord goes, um, I don't know. I kind of look at it two ways and kind of how it's impacted my faith. Um, Firstly, I would say, like, in my life, when faith, like, my faith has been difficult, I would say throughout my life, it's been always a choice. It's been
Yeah.
faith. Like, I haven't had really, I guess, a lot of those really personal encounters. And so when I've been struggling with my faith, I think at times it has been hard to have so many strong Catholics around me in the way that it can be a little discouraging when, like, to have a brother like David who his faith seemingly so strong, and he's, I guess, so
Okay.
successful with his faith, you could view it, and that's a great thing to have around, in a way, but it's also hard to have around as much as I feel like we do, because when I am struggling, it's a lot easier to feel maybe worse than I would if I didn't have all these incredible examples of faith. But in that,
What do you mean by worse?
I think I'm way more critical of my faith because I have so many good examples of like faithful men and women. It
Hmm.
has made me feel like my journey to some extent has been a little bit harder because I am wanting like so much out of it. And I've seen like the fruits of people's faith and their dedication to God. And so like when you're not seeing those fruits of your own dedication, it's really discouraging. But in that
What
same
do you mean
breath,
by
what I
fruits? What
wanted,
does that look like?
like when you are doing the hard stuff, when you are, let's say, going
Mm.
to confession, going to mass every Sunday, doing your prayer time, and you're not feeling that connection with God, that's really
Mm.
difficult. um yeah, that's really
Yeah,
difficult. So
that
I
is
think
hard.
that's
It's really hard.
that yeah, that has made it kind of difficult, in a way, because I think I'm a lot more critical, and I know what it is that the faith provides. And so when I don't recognize that in my own life, it's hard. And I feel like we have a hyper awareness of that because we've seen it touch so many people's lives, and seen so many
Yeah.
families that are constructed around God. And we've seen what that looks like and what that does. And that's great and beautiful. But the other thing that I wanted to say, like kind of on the same note, is being in City of the Lord, um,
Can I
you
pause you for a
see
moment?
the
I have a question.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we get into City of the Lord, I want to put a pin in that. But for you, if not in the sacramental life or through the experience of City of the Lord, you said that you have had doubts or questions about faith, but you have come out on the other
Mm.
side believing that God exists. Where do you experience God? if not in those kind of like direct, more overt Catholic
Yeah.
experiences? Where do you personally experience God?
Yeah. Personally, for me, I would say my experience with God would more so come kind of from like I don't know if I would even maybe call it as much of an experience as like kind of logically looking at my own life and just me being here. And
No
I can just
emotion? No kind of like emotional experience of God sort of showing up and speaking to you
I,
personally? Does
I,
that never happen? Even if it's like through art or nature, anything?
um through like overdoses, like unconscious states, I've had like experiences
Hmm.
like that where I feel like I actually like maybe had more of like a conversation or like that connection you're speaking of. But
Hmm.
I would say
He was
more
there for
so
you in
for
those dark
me,
moments.
yeah, more so for me, I can look back on my life and recognize that there's just simply no way. Um, there's no way he wasn't there in like a lot of moments, and I can look back
Hmm.
and recognize that. But it's
Hmm.
not something that I necessarily would have recognized when I was going through it. It just really like if I can't break something down logically and kind of like think like that makes sense, then I struggle with it. But even when I kind of approach it from like that very like logical perspective, like it just makes sense to me. And so that I think every time I've questioned it, I've kind of just come out on the other side and been able to look at my life and think like there has to be there are several times in my life where I know there's been like divine intervention, and that didn't come through like a conversation. Yeah.
So, by the logic that you expressed to me, um, there, looking back over the course of your life, you saw
Yeah.
God's involvement. You saw that there's no way that He was not involved in those experiences. But when you were
Yeah.
going through it, it was hard for you to know where He was and how He was leaving an imprint on your life at that time. Let's take all of that and move it forward. Logically, and it would seem, if all of that is true, that He's involved in your life right now, but you can't see it. Is that
Yeah,
fair to say?
exactly. Yes. And that has maintained my faith to the point that I'm at today, is kind of what I'm saying is when I look back at my life, it is really clear that God's been there. So I I know that he's always with me.
Do you have any sense of how He's with you right now in what you're going through?
Yeah, like I think I've always my I guess to put it simply, like the way I've always felt God is definitely through like his creations and the beauty of like the world and art and all of that. And just like, yeah, and just as an artist, just kind of like there needs to be a creator for this creation. And I don't know, it just is really pretty sound stuff. When I
Yeah.
break it down, I realize I tend to way overcomplicate it. And really, for me, I feel like the thing that I've always been able to go back to is like, I've struggled with my faith a lot, but I just feel like I know, like, deep down that I
Yeah.
do believe, and that I just have a unique way of connecting. And the thing that I was going to say about City of the Lord was really important, is like in mass you don't get to see like really how people practice their faith, like the individuality of it. It's just you're a crowd or like a congregation,
Yeah.
whatever.
Everybody's
In
aligned
City
with the
of the
same
Lord,
liturgical
exactly.
expression.
Yeah. In City of the Lord, you're seeing like, okay, this person is like, they have a really emotional like connection to God that is like, prophetic. Like they're having
Overt.
conversations, they're
Yeah.
hearing things,
It's out
there
there.
is that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the complete opposite. There's the people who are showing up every single Sunday and
Internalized.
I've never even heard them speak, but
Yeah.
clearly
It's
they're
deeper. It's
feeling.
internal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just seeing the way that, there is just that wide like spectrum that like how you connect to God and how you feel God, and then how you decide to worship. Um,
Yeah,
that can be different, and I think that that was really valuable to see. Just to know, like, there is that guy who's just loud as all hell and seems to always be just on fire with the Holy Spirit, but like it's also okay to be me and just to like to just try to, yeah, yeah. So I think more than anything that's been what's valuable.
that's cool. As you're talking, I think about the four different ways of experiencing God. God is truth, God is goodness, God is beauty, and God is all one. There's a great book by Father Benedict Rochelle who talks about this. And God, and we primarily have one, but we also have like a maybe one or two. Some of us can experience God in multiple different ways, but God as beauty is a very profound experience for many, many people. And you know, it's interesting you talk about these two different sides of your personality going all the way back. I mean, there's this thread throughout this entire conversation of you as an artist versus you being realistic. And you're talking about like
Yeah,
your faith being sort of practical and reasonable, but then you experience God in beauty. It's like these two different parts of yourself that are almost
yeah,
like vying for dominance, because like God as beauty is very difficult to be logical about or to systematize.
yeah.
It really is
That's
an
my biggest
emotional
struggle.
experience of God.
Yeah, that well, I my two biggest like personalities, I guess, would be like I'm a very like numbers. I'm an analytical person, but I'm an artist, which
Yeah.
are those are two things that don't generally like go together. Maybe like if they
Yeah,
do, it's like
generally
in an
not.
architect, like an architect. Sometimes you'll see that, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a weird like combination of things, and I feel like figuring out like that's pulled me in so many directions. I feel like as far as my faith, and the thing that I've been realizing lately is I just need to allow myself to like move forward a little bit more and not be on this like tug of war with myself so much, because I'm just like standing so still when I let those two sides of my brain like fight. I think I'm able
Yeah.
to like I think you should be able to see, God in the beauty of the world, but also like at the same time it's okay to be able to like recognize, I guess, like
Well,
sometimes you
God,
can look at God as a very logical and like um
he's rational. He is the word,
yeah,
and he's also beauty.
yeah. So you can look at it from both sides, but yeah. So it's hard sometimes feeling the pull of between the two.
I love what you said just there. In my line of work, we have this idea that we are a multiplicity and a unity both. So I am Bryan, but I have different parts of myself that become more manifest or evident at different points in my life. Sometimes they become uh they grab the steering wheel. There are parts of me that really take control, and it's really a younger part of myself that's making decisions for me, and I actually don't want to let that part blend with my choices, and I want to sort of be in self and relate to that part, listen to that part of myself, but not let it run the show. And you're what I hear you talking about is these two different parts of you, which are probably younger, that are vying for control of Alex. And sometimes one part is winning and other times another part is winning. But what you said is like, actually, like these parts don't need to fight. When I'm in self, I can listen to both of these younger parts of me, hear what they have to say, but move forward with all the parts.
Yeah.
All the parts. I don't have to choose one side of me or the other. I can experience
Yeah.
God in different ways. I can experience life in different ways. I can be an artist and make money. I can
Yeah.
create graphic. I can create T-shirts and like football. God is
Yeah.
reason and God is beautiful. I don't need to choose. It's all the stuff, all the things. So I think it's pretty cool.